Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Sharon Oyella and this is part 4 of our Crochet Easter Bunny. This is the final video in the series. If you missed the previous videos, you can find those up here in the iCard and you can click those at any time during this video. You'll also find links in the description box below. This video we're going to be making the tail, and there's the pom-pom tail, there's a solid tail, and this wasn't actually part of the original pattern, but tonight when I was doing the tails I decided to show you how to add fun fur so you can still have a fluffy tail even if you didn't use a pom-pom. So this is done after the tail is actually made, so it's pretty easy. You can use any brand you want. This is a Lion brand, I believe. Yes, a Lion brand yarn fun fur. Alright my friends, let's get started. We're going to start with the tail first and then we'll put our bunny together. Before we start the pom-pom itself, cut a strand of yarn about 2 feet long and set it aside. We're going to use that to tie off our pom-pom when we're done wrapping. So we're going to take the yarn and wrap it around 3 fingers. If you want a smaller pom-pom, then just wrap it around 2 fingers. So I'll just do this. I'm going to wrap around 40 to 50 times. So I actually wrapped about 60 times. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to be precise. The more wraps you make, the bigger the pom-pom tail you'll make. And then just cut that free. Now carefully take the wrap off of your fingers and bring your tie in, get it ready. Get this off without unraveling it and just hold on to it best you can. Wrap the tie around, and now we're going to tie off the middle. So now I'm going to tie it off. I'm going to wrap around once, and I'm going to do it one more time, and that will just keep it from pulling away once I pull it into place. It will stay in place once I pull it. And you want to tie right off in the middle and pull as hard as you can without breaking that yarn. Okay, and I'm going to knot it off one more time. Just make sure it stays in place. And there we go. Now we're going to cut through all these loops on the side. Don't cut these pieces here because that's going to be used to tie your pom-pom into place. Just go on the side and cut through all the loops. When you're done, you'll have a piece that looks like this. And now you're just going to trim it up until you have the shape of a pom-pom. Just trim off all the ends. So I finished that one, and it's a little bit too small, so I made another one. And this one I wrapped 80 times. So it's up to you if you want a small pom-pom or a bigger one. The more you wrap, the bigger your pom-pom will be. Alright, so if you prefer the solid tail, I just finished row 7 of the solid tail. I didn't do a row by row tutorial because if you take a look at the written pattern, the first 3 rows are identical to the first 3 rows of the body, and I go super slow in that tutorial, so if you need that extra help you can go back to part 1. And then after you have 18 stitches of row 3, then you just follow the pattern after that, 1 single crochet in each one of those 18 stitches for 2 rows, and then I've already showed you how to decrease. So I just finished row 7 like I said, and I finished off and I left a tail for sewing, and now I'm going to weave in and out of these remaining stitches. This is exactly what I did when I finished off the body as well. Then you weave all the way around back to where you started. And before pulling on that yarn tail, we're going to stuff the tail. So you want a nice round tail, so I put a lot of stuffing in there. And now I'll just put a little bit more. Now we can pull the yarn tail and close it up, and now we're going to knot off to hold that closed. Now we're going to leave that yarn tail for sewing. We'll use that to sew the bunny tail to the back of the bunny. Alright my friends, this wasn't in the original pattern, but we're going to try something. I haven't done this yet with this tail. Let's see if I can make it nice and fluffy without having to do too much work. So we're going to take this fun fur and we're going to crochet it around these rings on the outside. And we're going to start here, going to push through the center hole and come up in between row 1 and 2 and just lay the yarn over the hook and pull it through. Hang on to that shorter yarn tail in the back so it doesn't pull through. Get ready to crochet on and chain 2, 1, 2, and now we're just going to crochet around these rings, chaining 2 in between each single crochet. So go into the next stitch over and push through, pull the yarn through. Now do a single crochet and chain 2, 1, 2. Next stitch over, pull it through, single crochet and chain 2, and keep going around and around all the way around the tail. Alright guys, so I finished crocheting around, but I didn't do every single row. I actually stopped here. There's about, let's see, 1, 2, 3 rows left, and I don't think it's necessary to keep going, because if I stop there and I put it on, it's pretty fluffy. So I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to break free, and I'll just pull that yarn tail through that loop, pull it tight, and then I'll just carry the yarn tail, this fluffy one, through the tail itself, and then I'll break free. And there we go. So there's an option for a fluffy tail without making a pom-pom. And this one, I just go around and just fluff up all the little strands that get pulled down as you're crocheting around them. So I'm just taking my needle and going around those rows and just pulling up those strands, get it to be nice and fluffy. Alright my friends, we're going to start sewing this bunny together, and I'm going to start with the ears first. If you have pins, pins would be very helpful. You could pin both of them in place and then start sewing that way. I'm just going to hold mine in place and sew them in. You want them on either side of row 1, that center hole of row 1. Set your bunny on the table, make sure that the ears look good where they're at. They're not too far forward or too far back. And like I said, pins would be very helpful. I'm just going to hold mine in place, and the finishing yarn tail should be on the side. And I just bring it down through, and I'll come up right here, a row over, and now I'm just going to weave back and forth of this ear right in the bottom, right through both sides. Pull the yarn through, go back into the head, and immediately come up again in the front. And if you find another way of sewing these in that's easier, then feel free to do that. I'm just showing you one way here. There's different ways of doing things. It's all personal preference, really. Okay, so now I'm on the other side, and I'm right in front of that ear. I'm going to go right through, front to back, pull it through. Before I finish, I'm just going to stop and make sure that looks good, and it's still where I want it to be. Alright, go back down, and come up in the front, and come up here. And it's done. I'll just go in, and I'll come out anywhere on the side of the bunny. And there we go, all done. I think that ear looks great. So now all I have to do here is just knot off, just go through. And then bring it through anywhere else away from that area, and now we can cut free. Alright, so let's do the legs now, if you've made those. Now, I actually hot glued these ones into place, and that's super fast and super easy. You don't want glue on the front, of course. You want those nice and free. And on the side, I don't have any hot glue. So what I did was I put my feet on the table, and the toe pads facing down, of course. And so when I put my hot glue on, I had the feet side by side, and the hot glue only goes in this area here and just on the inside. So on both insides of the feet there. Once the hot glue is in place, then I just have to set my bunny on top, and then the feet are attached. But if you don't want to do it that way, we can definitely sew them in place. And again, pins would be helpful, but you just want to make sure you have them centered and there's room for both of them, running the length of the body. Once you have that position figured out, bring your yarn needle through the inside of the leg and bring it right about here on the leg. And now bring it into the body. I'm going to go through the leg, and I'll come up over here, not right to the side, because the side can't be sewn right to the body. It needs to hang over a little bit. So you see what I did there? Just a stitch on the inside. Pull it snug. I'll go back in. And again, I'm going to come up right underneath the foot, right here. Bring it through. I'll bring my yarn needle through the leg, and I'm going inside, in between the top and bottom of the foot. And come up right around here, pull it through. And then into the body. And the one foot is done. Now we just have to knot off. And again, if you find a different way of sewing it on, by all means, do whatever is easiest for you, of course. Pull on it slightly and cut. Now let's do the other foot. Okay, I'll do the other one, and I've already brought the yarn tail to the side. Make sure that they're centered and everything looks great. And now you can just go ahead and sew that in. Bring your yarn needle in through the foot, and you can come out anywhere. And if you wanted to, you could come right through the foot. As long as you go right back in close by, yeah, I would go over a stitch or two close by, and then you can go in and out and just pull snug enough to pull it into place. And you don't want to have any holes like I just made there, so if you do that, just reach in there and pull that yarn tail up. There we go. Just snug enough to pull it into place. And these are done. So now I just have to knot off. Now the last thing to do is the bunny tail. I'm so excited to use this one here because that wasn't even part of the original plan, but look how cute it's going to look. And really fluffy. So I'll just bring the yarn tail right through that indent, and I can come out anywhere. It doesn't really matter. Just come out anywhere where it's comfortable to come through a stitch hole. And pull it into place. When you go back in, make sure you go back in the same stitch hole you came out of, and then come up underneath the tail. You just have to feel your way in there. Pull the yarn tail through, and on the solid one you can go right through the tail itself and out anywhere on the tail, because this is a solid piece under there, so I can just wrap over a stitch here and back in and through, and that's pretty much done. What you can do for added security is, before you pull this yarn tail tight, pull the tail back a little bit and put hot glue in there or fabric glue, and then pull on this yarn tail. Once that glue is dry, that's a solid tail. If you're doing a pom-pom, you would do the same thing. You could add a little bit of glue underneath it before you pull the yarn tail through. And because this is a solid one, I'm just going to pull it through. I can knot off here and then pull this away and cut it free. If it was the pom-pom tail, I would bring the yarn tail down here underneath these feet somewhere, and I could knot off hidden underneath the foot or just right underneath here. It doesn't really matter, whatever you prefer. You can pull the foot back a little bit and then knot it off underneath there. So go through that loop and then pull tight. Now just bring that yarn tail anywhere else, pull on it slightly, and cut. So that brings us to the end of the video tutorial. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned some stuff along the way. I hope you enjoyed making your little crochet bunny. And if you did make a bunny, I'd sure love to see it. You can post pictures on my Facebook page, Amigurumi Freely, or tag me on Instagram. Both of those links are in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you super soon.